We are so excited to have ESPN NFL Live analyst Dan Orlovsky join us today. Dan, I know you are a busy man, so we appreciate the time. We saw you talk a little bit about the Vikings today, or at least this week a couple of times. What impressed you most about that 49ers win?
Yeah, I think number one, that they outcoached a team that I think is as good coached in the NFL or as well coached in the NFL as certainly possible. I mean, Kyle Shanahan I've known for a long time, and I've always appreciated and admired how great of a coach he is in many different ways, X's and O's, and the way he formulates game plans and attacks teams and whatnot. And, I just think it's very rare that they play a game where you can watch the tape and be like, man, they were outcoached. Because I understand that it came close at the end or whatnot, but if not for the Fred Warner punch out on Aaron Jones, like that's going to be a butt kicking in many ways of a game scoreboard wise. So I just think the way that they went about Minnesota attacking San Francisco's defense while also being smart, because you can't just go constantly on the attack, and the way that Kevin married plays to look the same on a consistent basis, and then Brian Flores defensively. I think Brock Purdy is as comfortable in the pocket as a quarterback that we have in the NFL, and very rarely looks unsure or rattled or frazzled or hesitant. And that was the case for a lot of that game. And again, I think that's a very impressive thing to do.
Yeah, as much as we wanted to have you on, and we will get to KOC and Sam Darnold and how that combination's been going, it's something that you said that kind of struck a chord with me, that you believe that the Vikings could be a top 5 defense by the end of the season. And a lot of it has to do with Brian Flores and what he's able to dial up. Why do you believe so much in that Vikings defense?
Yeah, I think the number one way that you can slow down a lot of offenses nowadays that are a little bit more pass happy, pass centric, is you make quarterbacks play with a fraction of a second more of hesitation or a fraction of a second more of doubt. And that allows you, one, to, maybe get home, or two, to have some zone defenders get their hands on footballs. And I think that's kind of at the core of what this defense is about. They make quarterbacks feel like they have to play faster than they actually do. And that creates mistakes, that creates sacks, it creates sack fumbles. And they do it without, making themselves vulnerable on the back end and giving up, big indoor explosive plays. So it's a lot of X's and O's gymnastics for offenses.
Brian Flores is his second year in this scheme. He has a lot of the free agent players that they picked up this offseason plugged in. And do you think that could be one of the reasons why it's maybe taken a step sooner this year for this Minnesota Vikings defense?
Yeah, I think some of the veterans that are on it, the addition of Steph, obviously Harrison and his brilliance, I think allows a lot of the, Harrison, and I want to be very careful with my words here, and this is said in a respectful manner. Harrison has some like Earl Thomas, Ed Reed in his game where, those guys were a lot of times kind of doing what they weren't supposed to in a good way. And it made quarterbacks be like, you're not supposed to be there. Or you're not supposed, I'm not expecting you to be there because of this. And again, that's said in an admirable way of like, he has such a great instinctual and understanding and athletic feel that sometimes he goes and does some stuff on his own at times where you're like, yeah, that you're not supposed to do that, but it works out because you know exactly what we're trying to do as an offense. So I do think some of the veteran presence has allowed it to really kind of take shape and kind of have an impact early on.
As this group puts more and more plays or what they're doing out there on tape, how hard is it to sustain the level of attack or the way that they conceal things up at the line and stuff? How hard is that to keep going throughout the end of the season?
Yeah, it's always hard. I would say this again, the connectivity of it. So if they consistently have success on first down as a defense, then they can get into those packages because they're at the advantage of 2nd and 10, 2nd and 8, 3rd and 7. And that's when they can sit there and go, well, we can bring the all-out pressure, force the ball out, and make a 5-yard tackle and get off the field. So the ability to be really good on first down matters the most for them. Now, teams will get more aggressive on first down against them. That would be my anticipation. So that's that chess, that cat and mouse game between Flores aggression and whatnot, and how well they're able to execute on. And then when you get into those second and long or third and long defenses or situations, there's really only two ways for an offense to try to counter it. If you think you can figure it out and block it up, God bless you, because you'll be wrong. So it's like a Rolodex. You just call certain protections one by one by one. You don't want to call the consistent one. So they'll try to do that and quick snap them, or they'll just throw perimeter screens and say, hey, we're just not going to allow bad plays to happen. And I think, again, that's where you're trying to call the perfect play versus the perfect defense at the perfect time.
Yeah, that's a lot of factors going into that one.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm going to pivot from here because I feel like all offseason long, you've kind of been beating your drum for Sam Darnold. Like maybe he wasn't getting enough love for coming to a new place and starting over and being in the right system. Do you feel a little bit vindicated after the first 2 weeks of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a big fan of Sam's and believed in him. I'm just more so happy for him that he's, in a place, and I don't even know Sam, but happy that he's in a place that he's having success at, and he's been given the opportunity to have success in. And so I'm aware it's only 2 games in. I believe that quarterbacks that are talented, as long as you get, and I think the best part of Sam is he's weathered. He hasn't allowed the failures and the struggles and the disappointments to break him. And so there's a great amount of mental toughness and self-confidence still attached to his game. And I believe that really talented kids or guys, and Sam is in really healthy supporting cast places, both the receiver, the tight end, the offensive line talent, coupled with a really high-end scheme and play caller. I just think more often than not over the course of a 17-game season, you're going to have a high amount of success. And so it's a very healthy place for a player like Sam to play. And I've always said this, Sam's biggest flaw was that his feet were so disconnected to the pass, and he's really worked hard by all accounts to fix that, and he has. And as long as you keep them clean, and for the most part, and I think that scheme and offensive line allowed it to do that, I just think he can make big time throws, and that's certainly shown itself through 2 weeks.
Do you think that the way that he has married his feet with the pass concepts, where do you think working on that came from?
It's probably a little bit of self-evaluation and through his journey of, I think he went to the Jets and then he went to Carolina, and I believe that was it, but maybe somewhere else in between. You never know this league. So that and just realizing like he had to fix. I remember when he was in Carolina. I remember it vividly. He was going to throw like a corner, a sail route, and he was in the shotgun and he was so ready to throw, and the guys weren't even ready for the ball. And so that was, again, that growth and development. That certainly San Francisco with Kyle, because it's a foundation of what they do. It's the starting point of this offense when it comes to their pass game. And so I think his own journey and then going to San Francisco, it was probably a little bit more of an eye opener. And then probably watching a player like Brock Purdy. Yeah. Oh man, this dude he just listens to his feet constantly, watching that visually reinforced.
Well, the talk around the facility has obviously been the fact that this Vikings team is going to be up against another tough team in the Texans. They feel like there are a lot of similarities, especially on the offensive side of the ball, going out there and trying to set the tone. What do you think the Vikings need to do to pull off a victory and stay undefeated?
I think number one, Houston's pass protection has not been good this year, and it wasn't great last year. CJ's covered up for it. So I think when they get opportunities to get CJ down on the ground, you got to get him down on the ground. Week 1 against Indy, they win the game, Houston, strictly because CJ made some big plays with his legs, both getting out of bad and making good. So, their pass rush can once again be a huge factor in this football game. They got to handle Nico Collins. You can't just treat him as a singled up X receiver. I can make the case that they should handle him like sometimes teams handle Justin. I'm not saying he's on Justin's level by any means, but he's a big-time elite wide receiver, so they got to make sure that they handle Nico. And then on the flip side, Houston's defense is so good and so violent and so fast. I think the best way for Minnesota to try and have some moments of success is you got to take advantage of their aggression. You can have a ton of respect and appreciation for aggressive defenses, and that's what Houston is. but you got to take your shots to take advantage of their aggression. So, some play action pass screens. You're trying to talk about misdirection or counters to get ball in speedy playmakers' hands. I think that's the best way to do it against Houston's defense.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dan, for your time. We appreciate it so much. Continue to talk about the Vikings as well as they're doing. We really just love the love. Thank you so much.
You got it. Thank you for having me.